Hello, everyone. Wishing you a very happy week. And in today's episode, we are going to talk all about charisma and the equation for it. And we are going to look at how to build gravitas through communication. Now, imagine how big and how charismatic, magnetic we had our Marilyn Monroe to be. One day, she wanted to show what actually charisma is. So she actually walked with her assistant she took a train. She was all dressed in scarf, and nobody even noticed that there was Marilyn Monroe sitting next to them in the same train coach. And she was as good as invisible. And then it went on to, she went on to get down and walk on the highway streets. And all of a sudden, she said, "Look at the magic." And then she removed the scarf and then she fluffed up her hair and she put that bright smile that Marilyn Monroe will ever have. And within a blink of an eye, people surrounded her, the hustling and bustling of that street, which ignored her initially. And just within few seconds, everybody looked at Marilyn Monroe. They wanted to take autograph, they wanted to click, and all of a sudden, the street became a paparazzi for her. How did she do it? It was just few seconds where she transformed from the Mary Jane Baker to the Marilyn Monroe. And that is exactly what is charisma. Imagine yourself walking into the room and everybody turns their heads towards you, not because you're loudest or you're demanding attention, but because you radiate something which is powerful. That is charisma. Now, think about someone you find extremely charismatic, maybe a leader that you work with, a celebrity, or even your colleague. Now, imagine what makes them stand out. And today, we will break all of that down for you. If you look at going back to the story of Marilyn Monroe, it very clearly tells that charisma is not something that you're born with, but something that you can tweak your behavior and you can actually keep altering between the normal self and, and becoming the charismatic self. And that's exactly what we are going to look at. This story is a stark reminder that charisma is something that we can learn and we can practice and become more charismatic through the time. In the next 40 minutes, we are going to look at what is charisma, demystify the equation of charisma, and look at the various aspects that comes under charisma. What is the science behind it, and what are the tools that we can learn today so that we become more charismatic? All right, let's step into this. Now, let us try and understand what is the definition of charisma. Charisma simply means it's the ability to inspire, influence, and connect with others on a profound level. It's often described as magnetic or captivating. But the great news is charisma isn't just a natural gift that any charismatic person that you've seen is born with. It's a skill that can be learned and can be refined over time. Studies by social scientists reveal that charismatic behavior can increase your influence, likability, and leadership potential. Now, think of it like this: you're working in an organization, and there are team members who would want to work with you. You take up a challenging work, the next second, everybody gets to know in office that this particular person is leading a team and they are all about wanting to get into your project. That is charisma. People wanting to work with you. And how many of us would need this, right? A lot of us want this because charisma is that magic that you stand out separately and people willing to be working with you. Now let's look at why do you think charisma matters in today's world? Whether you're leading a team, influencing clients, or building leadership, charisma is what sets you apart from good ones to great ones. And by the end of this session, you will walk away with a powerful framework of charisma equation and practical tools that you can apply in your daily life. Charisma is often looked at as a weapon in leadership in terms of building relationships and personal branding. And science shows that charismatic individuals are 60% more likely to influence others and 30% to be trusted. And this is a study which was revealed by Harvard Business Review. Now, look at some real world examples. Let's talk about Steve Jobs. What makes him stand apart when he is giving his keynotes on his product presentations, be it MacBooks, iPods? He really stands out. Don't you agree with me? His charisma wasn't just about selling products, it was all about inspiring a movement. So that's what sets him apart and opens that doors for him. So, how we can become charismatic? Is it luck or genetics? Neither. And I would like to introduce you to a very simple formula called charismatic equation. Now, before we move in, the second example that I'd like to give you is Nelson Mandela. He wasn't the loudest, or he was not even that forceful leader, but just with his presence and warmth and confidence, he inspired a whole nation to come together. And that's that power of charisma. Now, how do we become charismatic? We'll demystify charisma through a very simple formula: presence plus power plus warmth is equal to charisma. It's 2P plus 1W, right? The charismatic equation is absolutely the balance of these three qualities that anyone could have. First is presence. It's nothing but being fully engaged in the moment. If you are someone like me who have come across presence for the very first time, I was thinking that presence is all about getting dressed up and being present in suit and exuberant leadership showcase. That's what I thought. But actually, presence is being fully engaged in the moment. We could also call it being mindful in the moment. The next one is power, projecting confidence and authority as a true leader. And the third one is warmth, creating that emotional connection, that bond, that sense of trust and belongingness with your team. And that's what warmth does. If I look at it, warmth is that glue that puts that presence and your power together. We'll delve into more of that later. Each of these elements, the presence, the power, and warmth, plays a vital role in coming in together and creating that magic called charisma. Even if one of is missing, the equation would fall apart. Let's explore individually and discuss how to create and build the essence of power, presence, and warmth. Now, before I move any further, please look at charisma like a three-legged tool. One leg being presence, another leg being power, and the third one being warmth. Let's now look at even one leg missing. What happens? The stool wobbles, right? And that's what matters. To be truly charismatic, all the three must come in together, worked upon equally and strongly, and they must work in together in harmony. That's when a leader will be truly be present, be powerful, and be warmed. And that three combination will make you truly charismatic. Now, let's deep dive into each component and discover the tools you can use to develop these qualities. First up, presence. What is presence right now? We looked at it, right? Being fully present in the moment. Presence is the ability to be fully engaged and focused in the moment. It means giving your undivided attention to the person or the task or creating that sense of importance and connection. And it is also going beyond your personality. Even if you're having, uh, uh, coffee, how are you fully present tells you how magnetic you are as a person. What is the science behind charisma with respect to the presence? Charisma activates a psychological phenomenon called perceived attentiveness, where people feel valued and respected when the speaker is fully engaged, and I being the listener. What really happens in the brain is that the brain's prefrontal cortex is maintaining presence, and this attentiveness reduces that cognitive load for others and makes that conversations feel effortless and enjoyable. If you are a leader, my first idea to you is to start actively listening. I'll come to the tool, a very simple tool later. But active listening as a leader is super important because that means you are respecting your team and you're eager for them to share their ideas and thoughts. And that creates a great sense of presence for you as a leader and for the others as a team bonding. They feel respected, they feel valued for anything that they are sharing. And that will again promote your team members to talk more, to learn more from you. And that is how presence is maintained and brought in more. Now, look at the statistics. Presence means being fully engaged in the moment, physically, mentally, emotionally. It is all about making that person in front of you feel like they're the most important person in the room. If you practice presence, it means that you're 70% more likely to be trusted by members. And it is that simple. Just listening actively, because people can understand if you're listening or listening actively. And we are this human beings who give out unconscious body language. If I am listening to you, but then thinking something at the back of my mind, the person who's speaking will easily understand just with the fluttering of my eye movements. So you cannot fake it. We will have to actively listen as leaders. Now, let's dive into the tool that I would like to give you, the 5-second pause tool. This could be a very simple but a very powerful tool. So, how do we use it? Before responding or speaking, pause for 5 seconds. This will allow you to gather your thoughts, make more deliberate eye contact, and overall project a very calm confidence. It also signals that you're deeply engaged in the conversation and you're not rushing to react. How many of us have been in the zone where we listen not to understand but to respond? A lot of us are there. And it's not all wrong. We are designed as human beings in that way, where we are more worried about what am I going to talk more than what the other person is going to talk. And that's how we are designed as human beings. It's not all wrong. But the most important thing is, are we going to be this natural human beings, or are we going to cultivate confidence? Are we going to cultivate the most important equation, topic in the equation, which is presence? So from now on, we will listen to understand and most importantly apply that 5-second rule before we start responding. This way the other person knows that you're deeply listening, and after you listen you will take some time to connect with them, engage with them, and then you put your answers together. Let's look at one of the most important example. How many of you here likes Barack Obama? I have been following his speech, and I completely admire the way he speaks. If you look at Barack Obama, he's a master of pauses. In his speeches, he often uses pauses deliberately before he could respond to a question or after making a significant point. If you look at him standing in that podium, looking at a lot of people and answering, and there's a question, he stares deeply into the person with warmth and he internalizes the question and then he goes on to answer. This is the same for him after he makes a very important point. He gives that 5-second pause so that people can internalize the message that he has spoken. This practice not only emphasizes his words, but also showcases his mindfulness and full engagement in wherever he is. For example, in his debates, in his public address, his thoughtful pauses convey a lot of calmness and authority. In 2014, there was a study which got published by Harvard Business Review. What it goes on to say is that leaders who exhibit mindfulness and are fully present during their conversation improve their team's perception of trust and respect by 45%. Can you believe a 5-second pause rule can just increase the way you operate with your team over your team bonding and trustworthy to being a trustworthy leader by just 45%. And this impacts largely as a way you operate as a leader in front of your team. The pause allows the speaker to gather their thoughts, ensuring that your response is very well crafted. It also signals to the listener that their words are deeply respected, considered seriously, and overall, it is definitely going to foster a deeper sense of connection and trust. So, here's a challenge that I would like to give. Over the next three topics that we are going to talk about presence, warmth, and power I would like to give you simple challenges so that you will carry this just today and for the later time. Invest some very little amount of time and practice charisma over days to come. The challenge to you is turn to the person next to you and ask a very simple question. It could be as simple as, hey, what inspires you? Listen actively and then pause for 5 seconds before you respond. With this, you will notice how the conversations can just change for you, right? Would you do this from now on for the next, let's say, 30 days? Go on and ask questions to people and start practicing active listening. What is active listening? You will listen to understand and not just respond. Once they are done talking, apply the 5-second pause rule. Take 5 seconds and then start responding. You will see the magic of how your conversations, regular conversations, could move on to charismatic conversations. All right. With that, let us move on to the second bit of the equation, the second P, which is power. If you're someone like me, you would also come across power as the most dominating, most authoritative leadership. That's how I thought when I read the book like 10 years back. And the book is this, The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Cabane. When I read this book for the first time, I was like, okay, power, title, or the way a leader operates. That's what I thought. But you know what? In the purest form of self, power is the ability to assert influence, inspiration, and confidence. And all of this can come together with clarity, conviction, and authority. What is the science behind charisma with respect to power? We know that there's a part of your brain which is called amygdala, which handles all emotional stuff. This particular part of the brain, which is the brain's amygdala, associates strong and clear communication with leadership qualities. So, if you are someone who can talk with clarity and very strong messaging, You just come across as a leader. It's as simple as that. So anytime a person, even for ourselves, if we look at a person who is talking with clarity and gives a very strong message, we immediately and subconsciously create the leadership charisma for that particular person. And this is the science that we will use for the tool that I'm going to mention. Power adds authority to the charisma. It ensures that your ideas resonate, influence others, and gives credibility and command in the setting. Now, think about it. If you're a leader, don't you want to be charismatic? Don't you want to be that powerful leader that people would want to listen to? How many of us speak in the meetings? And once the meeting is done, everybody forgets and they go back to their work. How many of us would want to be that leader who's not just talking or inspiring inside that meeting room, but the messages that you deliver as a leader will last more than people sitting in the meeting room? Don't we want to be those leaders who needs to be taken seriously, whose messages just last longer? If you would like to come across as a leader who lasts longer than talking just in the meeting room, all we have to do is to apply a powerful tool, which is the power word ladder. It is very simple. All you have to do is to ensure that the messages that you deliver will inspire action in the team. The more and more you speak and inspire actions in the team, you will create a momentum that will work wonders for you. Now, how do we do it? It is to start speaking action oriented words. Now, look at how Jeff Bezos in Amazon's early days consistently used the action oriented words. He used words like we need to dominate the market, innovate, being relentless. All these three words became the core of Amazon's culture and branding. His use of decisive language inspired the confidence in his leadership and set an amazing tone for the Amazon's great rise. And that's how leaders not just create action for the teams, but also sets the brand in motion. So these three action oriented words that Jeff Bezos used: dominate, innovate, and being relentless. Now, the speakers using action oriented words are perceived 30% more credible and 20% more engaging. So, look at the next time when you get on the stage, how many times do you use the action oriented words? And every time you use an action oriented word, you're definitely going to inspire your team or anybody who listens to you to do the action. And I say that anytime you speak on the stage as a speaker, what it means to be a speaker is that it should inspire action in the audience. If you're a fitness speaker, look at if your audience, even one of them, can just get on the mat the very next day and start doing a fitness ritual, yoga or strength training, or it could be anything. And that is a true success of a speaker. And that's the same for a leader as well. If you would like to inspire and influence your team, start using action words, and you will see that your words did not just happen in the meeting room, but it lingers beyond the meeting room and it sets your team in motion. Now, one challenge that I would like to give you all is take 30 seconds to write three powerful words which you can start using in your communication. And every leader should have three action words which they keep repeating during their meetings that will inspire the team and builds that culture for them in their teams, in their organizations. Using precise, powerful words establishes authority and clarity. Leaders who consistently, that's why I say keep repeating those action words. When you consistently use these words to communicate, they are the words which get better at motivating teams, closing your deals, and inspiring action. Well, that was power for us. Let us move on to the third bit of the equation, which is warmth. Warmth is the ability to make other person feel valued, safe, and understood. If you look at how we humans operate, we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy. But when I started reading people and understanding people, I saw that there's one thing which is common across all human beings behind the different exteriors. And we have our own characters and behaviors which is built over time. But beyond the unique human behaviors that we put on, there's one thing which is common, that innate need for every human being to be felt valued, respected, and most importantly, accepted. And that's where warmth comes in very importantly as a leader that we all play. It is communicated through empathy and authenticity. If you look at the science behind charisma, warmth triggers the brain's mirror neuron system. And this mirror neuron system is the one which is responsible for social bonding. When people sense warmth, they naturally experience an emotional response that activates the bonding. What neuroscience research shows is that warmth based communication lowers the listener's stress hormone, which is cortisol, and boosts oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. The moment a person is going to feel warm around you, they are going to start secreting oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. And that in turn brings them very closer to you as a leader. If you heard me earlier, I've always felt that warmth is that glue which holds the power and the presence together. It, in fact, warmth balances the power and the presence by humanizing the connection and the communication that you will be making. It ensures that charisma doesn't come off as intimidating, but it truly creates that emotional resonance and the trust that you can be building. Warmth, as I said, it's all about making the other people feel safe, feel valued, feel more connected, and holds your presence and your power together. Let's look at it. Let's say warmth, let's remove that from the equation. Now you have power and you have presence. If you have power without warmth, you will come across as an intimidating leader. Or if you have presence without warmth, people can feel detached. So, warmth is super important in this equation. I would like to narrate the story to you, which, if you go back in time, in 1886, there was a run for prime minister elections in UK. Back then, we know what it means to be a prime minister of UK. It was super important, and the elections was all set in motion. And there were two big giants who was wanting to be elected for the post of the prime minister, Benjamin Disraeli and Mr. Gladstone. You know how the elections happen. People were trying to understand who is going to win. And there was an important turning point just a week before the elections results could be announced. There was a pretty young reporter, and she had the opportunity to dine with both of them, Mr. Disraeli and Mr. Gladstone. So she went on back to back dates with both of them. And you know how the press and reports happen. They went on to ask her, what do you feel? And what is your perception for the winning. She went on to say that after dining with Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the most cleverest person in England. And people were like, wow, that's definitely a great comment to hear. And she added, but after I had my dinner with Mr. Disraeli, I felt the most cleverest person in England. Now you would have understood what was the results. Yes, of course. Mr. Disraeli went on to win and take that position of being the Prime Minister of UK. So what do we understand from this? It's not about how people perceive you as the most powerful leader, but it is the warmth that you give to the other person that you are the most clever person. Now let's look at the tool that we would like to set. There's something called as mirror neurons match technique. I would like to simply put it as mirroring technique. So what happens is you have to look at every time you walk into a room, look at the energy and vibration of the room. That's important. And the second thing is subtly start mirroring the energy of the room. And how do you do it? You can match and mirror to the other person's tone, pace, and energy. If you keenly look at Oprah Winfrey's famous talk shows that she's been a part hosting, you will look at how she has that innate ability to connect very deeply with her guests and audience. If you look at the way she sits, her body language, her tone, just makes her interviewers deeply connected. And she very immediately creates a sense of atmosphere, sense of trust and belongingness that even celebrities will feel comfortable sharing their most vulnerable stories with her. And that is the power of mirroring neurons. And how does she do? She immediately looks and mirrors herself with her body language, the choice of words, the tone in which she speaks, and the other person, the celebrity, just feels very comfortable. The Journal of Personality and Social Psychology has found out that people, when they subtly mirror others' behavior, they are rated 60% more likable and trustable. And all of this, as I mentioned, is a very subconscious behavior. And when it is subconscious, it becomes profound. Nobody can make or break it because things which happen subconscious stays with you. And that's that power of likable, right? When you like someone, you start following them. And that's the greatest influence that could ever happen. And all of this could happen with a very simple tool and technique, which is called mirroring technique. Have you ever seen how leaders can just walk in the room and create that sense of charisma? They can effortlessly and flawlessly just read the energy of the room. And what we don't see is that they read the energy and they imbibe that energy into themselves. And that's something that happens subconsciously for even leaders is they architect the tone of their voice, the pace at which they speak, and the choice of words that they will be delivering. That will be the most appropriate thing to say and do when they are in a meeting room. When you mirror someone's energy or tone, you create a feel and sense of unspoken connection. And that goes on a long way for you to create that trust with the people. So, once again, I would like to give you a very quick challenge that you can go on and start using it in your office meetings. The next time you are in a one on one conversation with your team, start looking at the other person's tone, energy, and start imbibing that in your sense. Smile when they smile. Look at the posture that they are sitting. Look at the pace in which they are talking. And sometimes you can also look at the words that they use. If you can replicate the same for them, people, when they look at their own image, they start liking them, no? It is as simple. If they're going to look at you mirroring their subtle body language, they're going to start liking you, and the kind of humanizing the connection which you can make will just skyrocket. So the next time you get into a connection with your team member, with your partner, start looking at the subtle body language signs that they are showing and start imbibing them, and you will see how your conversation and relationship will take off. Now, let us look at how this charisma is magnetic. We looked at the equation where charisma is equal to presence, power, and warmth. Presence activates the prefrontal cortex, enhancing focus and engagement, and power influences the amygdala, signaling leadership and authority, and warmth triggers the mirror neuron system, which fosters trust and connection. And when all these three elements come together, they create something called as brain chemistry that makes people gravitate towards you. Next time, when you look at charisma, look at it as a three-legged tool where all the three legs needs to be equally and strongly worked upon, because that's what is more important. When you master power, presence, and warmth, you are not only communicating, but definitely captivating people. Wonderful. It's 8:39. Are there any questions? If not, let us quickly go back and recap what all we spoke, right? Charisma is a super important ability that everyone has to be learning in their leadership journey. Charisma is the ability to inspire, influence, and connect with people at a very profound level. It is often described as a magnetic and captivating ability that we all must have. And we also looked at the example of Marilyn Monroe, where we got to know that charisma isn't just a natural gift, but it is definitely a skill that can be learned and refined over time. And we also looked at the charismatic equation, where charisma is equal to power, presence, and warmth. We went on to each of the topic, where we first dwelled into the topic of presence, where we looked at presence is your mindfulness as a team member and how fully engaged and focused that you are in the moment, and how undivided of an attention that you can give to a person or a task, and that is something which will create the importance and connection with the other person. So what we also understood is that the brain's prefrontal cortex is responsible for your attention and mindfulness, and it plays a huge role in maintaining your presence. So the tool that we looked at for you to be super present in the moment is active listening. So one quick thing that we saw is to listen, not just to respond, but listen to understand. And the tool that we will use is the 5-second pause rule. Remember Barack Obama, the next time you are going to implement this, how he goes on to give a significant pause every time he was asked a question. As well, he has made a very important point. So the quick challenge that I had wanting to all of you to go back and do is to just spark a conversation with anyone around you. And when they start talking, start actively listen. And then when you will have to return to talk, give that 5-second pause and then you start talking. And this is definitely going to improve the presence element in your charisma equation. The second topic that we saw in the charisma equation is the power. It is the power in the leadership and communication, where you have that ability to assert, to influence, and inspire people. And we looked at the science as amygdala, a part of brain which is important and functions for the emotional response. And amygdala, when it comes across a clear communication and messaging, it tells that this person is a leader. And that's how we will work for power as a leader. So the next time you get on the stage and talk, you will use the word power ladder, which means you will start using action words very clearly and powerfully. The next time you will use this tool, you will think about Jeff Bezos, who went on to use three powerful action oriented words consistently. They were innovate, relentless, and there was a third word. Anyone remembers that? Yes, it was dominate. That's how they dominated the market, relentless and innovate. So these are certain action words that Jeff Bezos does. And I would like you to chalk down those three powerful action words that you will start consistently using in your leadership journey. And the third most important topic in the equation is warmth. As I mentioned, that's the glue which puts together your presence and power in the equation strongly, and it humanizes the communication. Please remember that warmth is all about making the other person feel safe, feel valued, and feel accepted. And that's most important. Without warmth, your power can be intimidating and your presence can be unconnected or feel detached. The tool that we quickly used is the mirroring technique. And we understood that there's something called as mirror neurons, which helps you in creating an unconscious or a subconscious connection with the other person. So start mirroring. We looked at the example of Oprah Winfrey, where in her talk shows, how quickly she makes that connect with her celebrities, and the celebrities goes on to connect at very deeper level, that they even go on to share their vulnerable stories on the stage. And that's how powerful your mirroring technique could be. So what do you do when you start talking to someone? You're in a conversation or in your room, in a room of people. You start looking at what is the body language that people are exhibiting, what is the vibe and energy and vibration that is there in the room, and quickly adapt the tone of your voice, your body language, and the words that you would be speaking, because these are the essential elements where you will create that subconscious connection with people. All right. With that, I strongly urge all of you to go back and practice, be aware of your presence, power, and warmth, and practice day in and day out. And I'm sure that your communication is not just going to be powerful, but it is definitely going to be captivating, and you will build gravitas over time. With that, thank you very much for listening and wishing you a great day. Thank you and bye.